Escape North, Part 2. Chapter 5. Free at last. Harriet ran for hours. Sharp pains stabbed her sides, but she didn't stop. She followed the Choptank River to the Maryland border. As she ran, Harriet remembered Daddy Ben's words. Walk through water when you can. The dogs will lose your scent. Harriet took off her shoes and stepped into the icy water. The icy river. When the sun rose, she heard the baying of hounds. The boatman was on her trail. Harriet found a small island in a swamp. She hid on a hollow log. She was so tired. She fell asleep. She didn't hear the slave catchers galloping past. In Camden, Delaware, Harriet found the safe house the Quaker woman had told her about. A brightly colored quilt hung on the clothesline. That meant it was safe for Harriet to knock. The owners welcomed Harriet into their home. They fed her. They hid her in the attic, where she slept all day. When night came, Harriet thanked them and ran for the next safe house. Once Harriet fell asleep on the road. She woke up just as a group of slave hunters were approaching. Harriet scrambled into a ditch and covered herself with mud. She prayed the hunters wouldn't see her. Somehow, they never did. After days of running, Harriet crossed into the free state of Pennsylvania. She looked at her hands. She was the same person, but something about her had changed. Her hands belonged to her now, not to anyone else. Harriet Tubman was free. In Philadelphia, Harriet found a room to rent. She found work as a cook in a hotel. One day, she met a man named William Still. He was the secretary of the American Anti-Slavery Society. Harriet went to the society's secret meetings. One night at a meeting, Harriet found out that her sister's family had escaped. They were hiding in Baltimore. They needed someone to lead them to safety. I will lead them, said Harriet. The men at the meeting were shocked. There were no women conductors on the Underground Railroad. It was too dangerous. But Harriet would not be swayed. She was going to free her people. Not just like Moses in the Bible. 6. No turning back. That first trip had been long ago. Harriet remembered it now as she felt the moss on the tree. 모스 있기예요. She had made it then and she would make it again. This way, she told the runaways. Finally, the group reached a safe house. But the station master wouldn't let them in. He was afraid of the Fugitive Slave Act. The new law said that anyone helping runaways could be severely punished. 이 slavery 도와주는 사람도 이제 벌을 받게 돼 있대요. Harriet led the group back into the woods. Everyone was tired and hungry. One woman was so weak that Harriet had to carry her. Suddenly, one of the men stopped. I'm going back, he said. It's better to be a slave than suffer like this. Harriet stood in his way. If the slave catchers caught him, they would beat the secrets of the Underground Railroad out of him. Harriet couldn't let that happen. She pointed her gun at the man. You run back. You will never run again, she said. Come with me now or die, the group trudged on. Finally, they found a safe house in Wilmington, Delaware. A Quaker named Thomas Garrett owned a shoe store. He had a secret room for runaways to hide in behind a wall of shoe boxes. When the runaways were ready to leave, he gave them each a pair of shoes. When they reached Philadelphia, William Still gave Harriet money to take the group on to Canada. He wrote in his journal, Harriet Tubman is not afraid. The idea that she could be caught at any time doesn't seem to enter her mind. Chapter 7, Saving Daddy Ben and Old Rit. Daddy Ben and Old Rit were now in their 70s. Running would be hard for them, but Harriet wanted her parents to know freedom. In 1857, she went back to Maryland dressed as an old woman. Daddy Ben and Old Rit were overjoyed to see her. Harriet took an old horse and wagon from a nearby plantation. That night, Daddy Ben and Old Rit climbed into the back of the wagon. Harriet covered them with blankets. She drove the horse as fast as she could. She wanted to be out of Maryland by daybreak. In Delaware, a Quaker railroad agent sold them train tickets. Daddy Ben and Old Rit could hardly believe it. They had been slaves all their lives. Now Harriet was using Daddy Ben's lessons to bring them to freedom. Chapter 8, Harriet's Last Years. In 1861, the Civil War broke out. 시민전쟁입니다. President Abraham Lincoln wanted to free the slaves, but the southern states were against this. One by one, they left the Union. They formed a union of their own called Confederacy. The war tore the country apart. As always, Harriet was quick to join the fight. She worked as a spy and a scout for the North. She also worked as a nurse. In 1865, the North won the Civil War. The Underground Railroad stopped running. The fight to free the slaves was over. Harriet spent her later years in Auburn, New York, taking care of her parents. After many years, the government decided to give her a reward for her work. She used the money to build a home for elderly blacks who had no place to live. In 1913, Harriet became too sick to get out of bed. Visitors read the newspaper to her. She followed the news of women fighting for the right to vote. She sent them a message, Stand together. 네, 여성들이 투표권을 얻기 위한 그런 권리를 주장하기 위해서 싸웠대요. It was a message that had helped her people win the victory over slavery. One day it would help women win the vote. Harriet died at the age of 93. She had made at least 19 trips south and brought more than 300 people out of slavery. I've never run a train off the track, but I've never lost a passenger, she liked to say. Today, Harriet Tubman is remembered as the Moses of her people and one of the bravest soldiers in the fight against slavery. Thank you.